some discussion the other day with somebody that I had met, and she asked what kind of things do we like to do for food preservations, and I had said, oh, I just made this batch of fermented cabbage, sauerkraut, and she's like, oh, really? And was almost like it was like shocking that I had done that. She goes, oh, well, I wish I had that kind of time. And it got me thinking, like, it's really not, it doesn't take that much time to cut up a head of cabbage. But I thought maybe she just didn't understand, you know, what the process was, and thought that it was, you know, hearing her grandmother talk about back in the day, you know, when they did cabbage to make sauerkraut, it was these big old vats and, you know, days and days of doing all this stuff. And it got me thinking, you know, there's probably other people out there that think that this whole fermenting process is a really big deal and it's labor intensive, and it's really not, guys. It's really easy. And so the other day I was grocery shopping, and I happened to be going through the produce section, and I looking for the stuff that I'm you know, was on my grocery list, and I saw a bag, these bags of coleslaw mix. And I instantly remembered this gal telling me, you know, she wished she had the time, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, you know what? They do this stuff up for convenience for us, you know, busy working people, whatever. I thought, you know what? Why couldn't this be used to make a quick ferment? And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to take it home, and I'm going to have you guys come along with me as I whip up a really quick batch of fermented cabbage, which this will end up being sauerkraut. So one of the things that I do when I am doing my fermenting, my canning, freeze drying, any of that kind of stuff, is I take notes. And what this does is it just helps me, because I'm one of those ones that say, I'll remember. You know, when you say that, you never remember. And I always try to do that little game in my head where you do the rhymes and, you know, blah, 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 so that you'll remember things. I don't. So I've just gotten into the habit of writing things down. And so in my notes here, I've got like these little tabs here. And what I do is I just have like a fermenting one, and seasonings, recipes that I use all the time. And this one is for my fermenting. I've got like things that I do often, which is like carrots and turnips and, you know, whatever else. But the one that I use the most often is probably the cabbage, because we love sauerkraut. Matter of fact, my son-in-law, when that jar starts getting, I do half-gallon batches, when that jar starts getting down to the quarter mark, he'll kind of look at me like, we got any more of this, and got any more of this in the refrigerator? And I would almost venture to bet that if I were to say, let me have that jar, you might even hear that son-in-law growl a little bit, because he loves the sauerkraut that much. So I always am watching those jars, and I make sure that we've got enough for the son-in-law. But not only that, for us, for the you know, your gut health. So anyways, on my notes here, you guys might want to write this down just as like a little kind of a rule of thumb here, but 2 teaspoons of salt per pound of cabbage is what you need when you're doing a basic ferment. I've done 5-pound batches, that's 3 tablespoons of salt. We did do 25 pounds one time for a class, and that takes approximately 3/4 of a cup of salt. Now what I always do when I'm making my ferments, depending on what I'm fermenting, but we're going to use cabbage today, is a brine. And I have the brine available just to top off the cabbage if it happens to go low, or if once I put it into my jars and there's not quite enough to keep the cabbage covered, you know, once I've submerged it. I usually have it just kept in the refrigerator, because I've always got a batch of something fermenting going. All right, guys. So what we're going to do today is a really small batch, and I'm going to base this on, you know, like the average family that wants to just have a jar of ferment in the refrigerator. So I'm going to use 1.5 bags of the organic coleslaw mix. Each of these bags is 12 ounces, so 6, 7, 8, 16. So I'll need just under 1.5 bags to make a pound. And I mean, as long as you're within a couple ounces, you're probably going to be fine. If you get going up more than that, you just want to make sure that your salt ratio is correct. It's a little bit better to go a little bit higher than lower to get the correct ferment. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to open these bags. And I'm going to dump them into my glass dish. All right, so we've got roughly a bag and a half in here, which is about a pound. So for a pound, I know I need 2 teaspoons. Now once I have the salt that's in here like this, normally I have other gloves, but this is what I have upstairs. So I'm going to just massage the salt into the cabbage. Kind of giving it a good little squeeze. Alright, what I'm going to do is let this sit here for about 10 minutes. Alright, so if I were to do this again, I'd probably go ahead and use 2 pounds to make sure I could fill this up. But just to give you guys a general idea how easy this is, I thought I would just do this way. But let me show you, just from it setting that little bit, you can see the liquid in there. Anyways, the liquid is starting to come up here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to top this off with the brine to make sure that it stays under the water. So one of the things that you need to do when you're doing this is you need to make sure that, see how like there's these little particles here that are on the edge of the jar? You just want to make sure that those are all tucked down, because anything that's not under the water will mold. So you just want to make sure that that's all knocked down. And then I've got these little glass weights. Put that in there. Give it a little tap, tap, tap. Want to make sure that my brine doesn't have any salt. Oh, there's some salt down, still mixing around on the bottom there. And then what I want to do is just make sure that I can fill that up. I want it to be underneath. You can kind of see that's the weight. But I want to make sure that that cabbage stays underneath the water here. And then all you do, guys, it's this easy, is I put a burper on there. Okay, so because this liquid is down below this jar, if this starts to bubble up and ferment, it probably is not going to come up over the top or come through the top here, the hole. So I'll probably just put it on a towel. But if I had this full all the way like this, put the lid on there, or put the glass weight that's in there, and then put this lid on there, sometimes when it bubbles and it ferments, it'll come out of the top of this. So one of the things that you can do when that happens is you can just put it in a glass bowl like this, a pie pan, anything that will collect, you know, if a little bit dribbles out. Was that not as easy as it comes? Don't let these old, you know, what you heard from your grandparents, great-grandparents telling you stories of slaving in the kitchen for hours and days at a time, deter you from learning the old ways. Once you get a taste of the raw fermented cabbage, the sauerkraut, oh my gosh, it is so worth every effort it takes to do this. All right, guys, keep on baking, keep on cooking, keep on stocking up your pantry. All this little stuff is going to add up. All right, until next time, keep on